Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it off, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, December 15th. Thank you so much for being with us. Of course, Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you by, powered by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Make sure that you go to andymorehonda.com to get more to your door and the best in new and used vehicles. Thank you so much for being with us. As always, a loaded show today. Plenty to get to. Just running down the lineup. Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload will be with us. And Purdue takes on number 3 Purdue taking on number 1 Arizona this weekend. Shay Wildeboor from Kansas Rivals as Indiana taking on the Jayhawks, the number 3 Jayhawks on Saturday as well. He will be with us. Zach Osterman, of course. Then a very, very special treat. Pat Graham, former Indiana Hoosier, sharp-shooting Hoosier, and the, how would you describe him? The silky guard, Shiron Wilkerson, former Indiana Hoosier, also going to be with us as they both are in Indiana high school basketball coaching now. Shiron has been for quite some time. He's the head coach at Jeffersonville, and Pat is an assistant with Harrison now. He used to be an assistant at Memorial, but Harrison and Jeffersonville play each other tomorrow as well. So add that to the craziness that's going on. Tonight, Trent Sisley's Heritage Hills team takes on Pat Graham's former Memorial team. So, man, it's just, you need a scorecard to keep up with what's going on. But we've got a loaded show for you today and looking forward to it. Of course, Indiana taking on the Kansas Jayhawks this weekend. You've got IU football news as well as they land a 3-year starting quarterback in Curtis Rourke. And this guy has taken more snaps than all of Indiana's quarterbacks that they had on the roster combined. That's of huge importance. So they probably have their guy for next year unless he gets beaten out, I'm going to guess. But over the course of 36 games for Ohio, he threw for 7,600 yards and 50 passing touchdowns with only 16 picks. He threw for 3,200 yards and 25 touchdowns with 4 picks before an ACL injury ended his season last year. Or in 22. So Indiana, I'm just picking up all kinds of good news. And in addition to others that I think we've already talked about with some linemen coming back. So lots of good news for Indiana on the football side of things. And we'll continue to follow that. And you can go to thehoosier.com to keep up with all that as well. But Kurt Signetti doing a good job of doing what he needs to do and doing it quickly, getting on it. Of course, we've seen a lot of guys from Indiana that have went on to elsewhere. It's going to happen, and it is what it is. But hello to everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. We appreciate you. Hope you guys are doing well as always. Fred jumping on, Las Vegas Larry, Donald from down in Atlanta, originally from up here. I was just down in Atlanta, of course. John from Southern Blount County. Sean jumping off from Muncie. A little cold up there in Muncie. It's got to be. Kevin down in Jeffersonville. Appreciate you as well. Jamie from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Kent up in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Pete and Cicero. Morning Raw. He's reminding you last day to sign up for the Capital One College Bowl Mania on ESPN on the fantasy tab created. You just create a team and join the group Indiana Sports Beat Radio. The password is simply B-Town. So this is your last day. I got my picks out of the way. It's like 43 picks. So it's like 4 weeks of a season, of a regular season. Phillips said finals week has created some surprising outcomes. That can happen. Sean says he heard a rumor of corporate naming rights in the works of Memorial Stadium and big dollars that come with it. Anyone hear this? Well, I haven't yet, but I've talked about that. I don't know why. I was never a fan of that, really, but you might as well. As long as you don't change the name of the stadium, I'm fine with that. And I'll be honest with you, boy, I hope this one's a little bit. If that turns out to be the case, I hope it's Jones and Jones or Smith and Smith, something a little easier than Simon Skajoke. And I know that's kind of a joke, Simon Scott, but it's different nationality spelling there. The SKJODT, I think. Is that correct? Did I spell that one correctly? But falls on from Amon Jordan. What's that?
You are correct, sir.
Boy, that's pretty good for me, just on a guess. Sid jumping on from Anderson. Appreciate you. Jesse as well. Kevin says he believes Donovan McCulley is coming back. That is a possibility. And if so, that would be a huge pickup for Indiana, of course. And we'll see how that one turns out. But I think Indiana football is going to be just fine next year. I think they're going to be more than just fine, as a matter of fact. I think that they're going to put on a team on the field next year that was better than this season. And that's kind of hard to do in football. Think about this. You've got 85 scholarship players, 125 total guys that you're managing here. You've got offense, defense. You got to remember, everything is separate. The various special teams, there's so much that goes in to the game of football and so many different players that impact that. And to make that kind of a change that soon, of course, it hasn't happened yet. I'm just projecting, but I just believe that is going to happen with Kurt Cignetti. He's very serious about it, out getting it done. And of course, you've got to see that on the field first, but he's produced that on the field. He's got a record of doing nothing but producing that on the field. His group that he has behind him, the coaches he has behind him, Tino Sunsry, the offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan. These guys, there's reason for excitement for Indiana football. And I can feel it from the fans. I can tell you simply by looking at things that I post on, whether it's on Twitter or whatever, putting out, football would never get any juice. Put something out about football and it was like, ho hum. Not now. Anytime something goes out, people are paying attention. People are watching. Kevin's getting a little overboard with a prediction of 9-3 next year.
Well, who's to say that's overboard? I agree we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves, but what makes anything overboard with a coach who hasn't had a losing record in his entire career? And I'm not saying Kurt Cignetti's going to take Indiana to the Big Ten championship. He may never do that. In fact, he probably won't ever do that. I don't want to be pessimistic, but he probably won't do that. But
I don't know that I would say that. I don't know that. I mean, I really don't know.
Yeah, and again, I guess really making any conclusion is too soon, but I don't think it's out of question to assume that Indiana, you even just said it, this team will likely have a better roster than anything they had this past season. And they had a lot of games this year where if things just went a different direction, they could have found themselves. They could have stumbled their way into a bowl game. I don't think it's out of question for Indiana to win anywhere between 6 and 9 games. And if you want to get crazy, maybe more than that if things just tip in the
You're already
favor of
crazy
Indiana.
at 9. What are you talking about if you want to get crazy?
And that is fair. 9 is a lot for Indiana.
I expect them to go to a bowl game. I'm not wavering on.
I think week 3, whenever they face UCLA on the road, will be very telling. And not that UCLA is, like it's not like you're facing Ohio State or Michigan, but
you don't know that.
you
don't know that next year. They're going to have
that's fair. Maybe Indiana's Ohio State or Michigan. Anyway, I do think that matchup that early to start bringing some real momentum in your direction. If you're able to go on the road and get that win in the Rose Bowl, that could be the true Kickstarter for the Curt Cignetti tenure at Indiana, I think.
Well, if that did happen, that would put them at 3-0 with another non-con game to play, which would put them at 4-0 already on the season. So yes, that would be a gigantic win for Indiana. But it would also just really ramp up the fan by if they were to go out to Los Angeles next year and play it's play in the Rose Bowl against UCLA and win, that would start a fire for Indiana football and fans that would start burning. It's already burning. I'll tell you right now, the fire is already burning. Curt Cignetti has already lit a fire under the Indiana fan base. And I got to take my hat off to the Indiana fans, football fans, for, first of all, giving that opportunity. Indiana fans are a lot of times are pessimistic about football with good reason. But they have a reason to be optimistic. And I don't know that they're the sleeping giant that they were called, but they are definitely a potential. Everybody is a potential in the Big Ten to be good. You just have to have the right coach and the right resources behind you, period. Indiana has never had both of those. I don't know that they've ever had either. But they have resources that are more resources that is getting put behind them. They are working on all of the other things. The administration, they probably have the right guy. You can't say that right now this far out, but it appears that way. And I see them going to a bowl game in their first year under Cignetti. Now, fortunately, they have 8 home games to aid with that. And the 3 non-con games that I expect them to go 3-0 in, which leaves 3 games that they just have to win. And I think Indiana's offense is going to surprise a lot of people next year in the first year. It's not going to be like it was. It's rating-wise, the kid that I just talked about from Ohio, Curtis Rourke, probably he was rated much, much higher than daggone it. I've already forgotten his name. No, the Indiana's quarterback this
Mendoza.
year.
Sorsby.
So Brendan Sorsby, who left. But yeah, they're bringing in different players. But you've got some that are coming back. You've got some linemen that have come back already. They've lost some. Which is going to happen. That's what they have to replace. They got to replace the big boys. You have to have your big tackles and offensive linemen to protect that quarterback. If that offense is going to work like it's supposed to work, they're going to have an offensive line that can play and compete at that level. So we'll see how that all works out. But, man, it's a gigantic weekend ahead here in the state of Indiana. Like I said, number 1 Arizona taking on number 3 Purdue. Number 2 Kansas taking on Indiana. You've got football. Speaking of football, how about the Raiders? Holy crap. 63 points last night. They had, was it 49-0 at the half, I think? I looked up, I'm like, you just got to be kidding me. It was nuts. I know the Chargers just lost their quarterback, but it's time for a break. We better hit it because we got a lot to get to today. Hey, we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday, right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Real quick, does Casey know he's coming on at 8:50, or when you sent me that?
Yes, but he might just need a reminder.
I got you. I just wanted to. I didn't think about it.
My phone just opened, so you might want to send him a little reminder. It's still
I'll
opening.
send him a message. Oh, never mind. Here he comes.
Here he is, Mr. America.
Yeah, I walked into the office 10 minutes ago and I had the spiraling update on the screen. I was like,
oh yeah, baby. Oh, yeah.
How we doing this morning?
We're
good. How are you?
Cracking open a Coca-Cola, a little 850 Coca-Cola.
Gotta do something to wake up.
Hey, I don't blame you.
Thank you for filling in the early.
Yep. No worries.
It actually works out good because of the Fort Wayne hour being kind of Purdue territory.
I know. Well, that's what I was thinking as well. That is what I was thinking.
Who's Kravitz writing for now?
Himself.
Is it? Okay.
Oh, man. I got a cold. My nose will not stop running.
Ugh.
Just barely, but just enough to aggravate you.
Yeah. Well, I like the Ted Lasso in the background. I just noticed that.
Yeah, right. It's just.
Oh, that's what that is. Damn.
Yep. The only issue is I haven't figured out the glare yet. So now.
Oh,
TV screens.
You wouldn't have caught it if you wouldn't have said it. I wouldn't have even noticed it.
Well, you just got rid of it though. Whatever you just did.
I moved my second screen, just entirely flipped it around.
Oh,
yeah. So it's fine, but
I would not have noticed that. Yeah.
And that's why they say don't mention any sort of subtleties people notice on the air because people normally don't notice them.
Well, that's why I've got so much going on that it's hard to pick one thing out.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
Oh, mercy. Got the big game coming up this weekend.
Yeah. It should be pretty good. They're pretty similar teams. It'll be interesting to see.
On
right,
Peacock.
10 seconds. You can talk about Peacock later if you need to.
I'm going to. Don't worry about that.
4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by The Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Friday, December 15th. Thank you so much for being with us. Joined now by our good friend Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload as Purdue set to take on the number 1 team in the country, Arizona, number 3 Purdue. This is I guess the highest anticipated game of the year so far, since these are the two highest rated teams to go at it. And this is on a quote unquote neutral floor in 70 miles from campus at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But not only is it's not going to just be Purdue fans, because you've got Ball State and Indiana State going at it before, so there's going to be a little mix there. But I don't think there's going to be very many Arizona fans there, just from experience. Let me tell you, because last year when Indiana played them in Las Vegas, Indiana outdrew them 80-20.
Really?
It was crazy. I mean, 80-20, easy all day long, and I was shocked with Arizona being so close to Las Vegas. But there will be few fans for Arizona. I think will be few and far between for that ball game. Personally,
yeah, I think Ken Baum have them as officially semi-away, semi-home games now.
Oh, is that what he puts down?
Yeah. So semi-home, which feels about right. That's interesting because Purdue and Arizona, they're in talks to play again next year in Vegas. And Painter mentioned it yesterday. They would be curious to see how the fans are there. But if IU was 4-1, probably looms well for Purdue next year as well. But yeah, definitely for this year, Gainbridge should be a lot of fun sellout. So it'll be a good experience.
Yeah, it should be that should be embarrassing for Arizona last year. That turnout, but this should be a really good game. You've got a lot of similar matchups here, and that's what both of these teams. Arizona has had some transfers in, and I'm trying to think of the guard
Johnson. Is a big one. Caleb Love obviously is the headline. Yeah, which I've talked to a lot of people this week, Arizona and not Arizona. And I am of the variety that the bar for Caleb Love must have been very low, because he's still shooting 30% from three. And all you hear is how he's bought in and he's playing well this season, which I get. He does the other stuff. Good defender, good passer, gets to the rim, but he's still a shooter that doesn't really know how to shoot, which is a little problematic.
Yeah, it usually is. You got some big guys in this, is of course Zach Edey, who it's going to be interesting to see what this battle is like with Zach Edey and Arizona's bigs, to see how they handle him, how they defend him, and whether they challenge Purdue to shoot the ball by packing or what they choose to do defensively.
Yeah, Umar Ballo is a very good big. 7 foot, 260. They've got a couple guys. Krivas off the bench is 7'2", a little skinnier, but still pretty good size. But it's talking to Painter yesterday, and their philosophies are pretty similar on defense with having those bigs. They want to drop their bigs. Arizona drops as aggressively as any team in the country. If Edey has the ball up top, Ballo will be in the paint, and everyone around him will be face guarding, trying to take any easy passes away and make it tough on big guys. It'll be interesting to see if they try to go one-on-one in the paint. Painter compared it a little bit to how Illinois played with Kofi Coburn. Really drop, and they tried to guard Edey one-on-one with Coburn. We've seen enough Edey against size that he's going to get his if Arizona goes to one-on-one with him down low. I think Purdue will be happy with that. They just have to be patient enough and not turn it away as they try to get it into him. That's been an issue off and on, the last few seasons. It's going to be a good matchup inside. I think the 4 spot might win and lose it for both teams. Casey Johnson's another transfer from San Diego State for Arizona, who's been really good for them. But Purdue has a lot of interesting 4s that they can throw at them. So inside the paint is not going to be a gentle day.
And that's why there will be a lot of pressure on the perimeter for the guards. Purdue is going to have to knock down shots to win this game, because Edey can get what he gets normally, but they still are going to have a successful and productive day from their guards, from their wings, like you just mentioned, the 4 spot. But this game, I think, is going to be won on the perimeter.
Yeah, that's fair. Kylan Boswell is really good for Arizona. He is a bully of a 6'2", 200-pound shooting guard, point guard hybrid. Can shoot the ball off the dribble, can drive and get inside. It's going to be a test for Lance Jones. Lance Jones is here to be physical and guard those kind of guards, but he's also gotten into foul trouble early. Some of his shot selection, especially in big games early, has been not ideal. I think he's still trying to not make the game come to him. You know, the big thing at Southern Illinois, he was less than 30% and he shot like 300 3-pointers. So there's definitely some tampering that he needs to do on his own end. But the name for Purdue when it comes to guards is Braden Smith. Is what he did against Alabama a sign to come for the rest of the season? 27, 5, and 8.
Another, I don't want to say issue, but something worthy of talking about, because I had to deal with this just a week ago, or I cannot remember who. John, who was it Indiana played on Peacock? Michigan. I think the Michigan game. And for the most part,
they'll have 4 more conference games on Peacock as well.
Well, that's the whole purpose. But this game with the number 1 and number 3 teams are on Peacock streaming service, NBC streaming service. Has there been much blowback from the Purdue fans over this?
A little bit. I mean, Purdue fans definitely skew a little older. And that's where you kind of see.
Oh, I think that goes. That's
for a lot of schools. Yeah,
they don't own that one. I got news for you, especially in Indiana. My God, I was like, dude.
Yeah, I get the state of Indiana. Yeah, in general. It's one of those things where it's going to be a story because it's new this year, right? But it's where everything's going, and I have been one. I haven't really had cable in a long time. Obviously, I go to the games now, but if you're having a streaming service to rely on, Peacock's a pretty good one. I don't know if you've tried to use the ESPN app ever. It's terrible. It always has been. At times. So it's a little bit of an issue with Peacock, but I don't know. It'll be a 1-year story and then it'll be fine. I don't.
I agree. I mean, I put out a tweet that I caught some flack over, but there was mostly likes. But I said, don't forget tonight's game is on Peacock,
right?
And I said, and either pay the $5.99 a month and cancel after your games, or don't. But stop whining. But stop whining about it. Yeah. And boy, people blah 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 blah. I'm not going again. More whining,
right?
But I don't like it, but I have to do it because there was a couple games that not only whether I'm attending or not, I like to record them and
that's
used for rewatching. So I think it's just something for people to complain about because it's something new. It's like you said, it's where everything is going, and so that'll be the case there.
It's not like we're not paying. Like if you have a cable package, you're paying like $3.99 every month for
something
channels that you've never turned on in your life. So
something, yes. Yeah. How many channels on your cable lineup do you
right.
don't watch? I mean, it's probably less than 10% of the channels that I have. I bet that I actually watch?
If that, yeah.
So there's that. And another issue, and I don't know if it's going to be an issue, but it's just a sad problem or a sad thing to have, is the NFL flexed the Indianapolis Colts and Steelers game to where it is at the same exact time as this game going on right down the road at Lucas Oil.
Yeah, someone that now lives in Indianapolis. I was thrilled by the short commute, and then that happened. So we'll see how short that commute is. There is the game beforehand, so get there early, catch some double hitter basketball, and the basketball should end before the football at least. So get out before the traffic gets real bad. Indy's decent at handling traffic, but it's a bummer for Colts fans, for Purdue fans. Obviously there's a lot of overlap there, and you would think if you had a big city thing going on like that, you would try to avoid it, but
Well, and the only good thing with the Indiana game is it's at 12:30, so you've got the time for people that there will be some that go to both of those games, I believe. But or they go from the Indiana game to the Colts game.
How prepared are those Bloomington fans going to be to welcome Hunter Dickinson back?
Oh, I think that they've been waiting. I think that they have.
There's not a better match in all of college sports than IU fans and Hunter Dickinson on the court at the same time.
Oh yeah, that is going to be. I haven't really thought about it a lot, but that is going to be it's going to be a loud environment, a raucous environment anyway.
Right.
But when you throw things like that in there, it just adds to it. And there's not a lot of guys that get under the skin like that. But boy, when they do, what's his name from Rutgers a couple of years ago?
Harper.
Yep, Ron Harper Jr. And then the kid from Wisconsin, Davidson. Who's married to Tyra Buss, by the way. Indiana's all-time leading women's scorer.
Really?
Yeah. So that really topped it off for them. But so
are you guys gonna regret booing at him when they have a kid and they're a 5-star?
They hate, and not unless he goes to Indiana, I guess. Right. But yeah, they will enjoy that. But it's going to be a great environment. It's going to be a hell of a weekend.
Right.
I was talking about. I'm fortunate to have Pat Graham and Sherron Wilkerson on later today here, and they play each other. Shiron is the head coach at Jeffersonville High School now, and Pat is an assistant at Evansville Harrison, where Calbert Cheney went to school. He's formerly an assistant coach at Memorial in Evansville. Memorial plays Trent Sisley and Heritage Hills tonight. So it's just a ton of basketball action going on this weekend in and around the state of Indiana. But, man, the marquee game there with Kansas or Purdue and Arizona after Indiana and Kansas. What a day for the state of Indiana in basketball. It's just it's how it should be.
Well, that's kind of the sad thing, because this might be the last marquee games for the Big Ten all season.
Well, you're not lying about that, because there's not much marquee in the Big Ten right now.
No, like Purdue and IU will be good because it's always good, but there's not going to be the national acclaim for it this year. And then the best thing you have looking schedule wise is Purdue, Illinois at some point. So Big Ten's not hitting the way it normally does.
Nope. We'll certainly see how it turns out. It's going to be a hell of a spectacle. Thank you so much, man. If you are trying to keep up on the Boilermakers and everything that's going on with them, make sure you give Casey a follow and go to @BoilerUpload. Buddy, we'll see you next week. We'll see what happens.
Appreciate it.
You betcha. Hey, we've got more coming up. Shay Wildeboor from Kansas Rivals joins us as the Hoosiers will host the number 2 Jayhawks this weekend. Back with that and more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. All right. Good morning, Shay. Can you hear us?
What's up, studs?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, man. How are you guys doing? It's early here in Kansas.
Yeah. Are you Central Time?
We're Central, babe. We always make the switch, so we're Central.
That's right. Would you are you using your phone? If so, could you turn it sideways for us?
Yeah, I am. Yep, I'm on the. Is that better?
There we go. It looks better. Thank you.
I'm sorry, man.
No, it's okay. Yeah, that looks fine.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah, so will you be in Bloomington tomorrow?
My rider's going. I'll be here. I've got a teenage son that's got some stuff. So, yes, I have a rider that's going. So, Jayhawks fan will be there for sure.
Sweet.
How's it going, brother? How are you, sir?
Man, what's going on? Hey, you think the Indiana fans are excited for Hunter? Hunter's excited for Hunter.
I bet he is.
Oh, man.
He loves it.
Listen, he's had some close calls this season. I mean, I don't even know how to. He's like something I've never seen before.
Well, it was a hell of a pickup. I'll tell you that. Just I don't know what was going on up in Michigan, but obviously it's not all kumbaya.
Right.
What I think they had the problem that Indiana was having. All the NIL money was geared towards men's basketball,
right?
Not football.
Ball.
All the NIL money in Michigan is geared towards football. Not men's basketball.
Right. No, he's been playing. I mean, the one thing about Hunter is he shows up game in and game out. He's ready to play.
Well, he's a hell of a player. There's no doubt. I mean, this guy is going to be a pro after this year. He's got the tools. He's a big. He can come inside. He's not afraid to go inside, but he can shoot. He's got a good touch outside. I mean, Indiana's got bigs that can do that, but they're not as confident or skilled at it, I think, that Hunter is.
No, I didn't realize that he can really shoot the basketball. I'm looking it up now. I think he's like 11 of 19 from the behind the arc, so almost 60%.
That's not bad.
Hey, how do you say Malik's last name?
Renew. Just Renew.
Renew. Okay, Malik Renew. Okay,
like two for Renew.
That's perfect.
We all thought it was Reno before we knew it better.
Yeah, but we had media yesterday, and Bill asked us, and I think someone said Renew, so I'm glad he got it right.
All right, here we go, guys. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of Wow Food Group. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyne, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Friday, the Friday before a hell of a sports weekend here in the state of Indiana, and part of that is the Indiana Hoosiers hosting the number 2 Kansas Jayhawks in a return game in their home series, final game in that series. And I'm joined by Shay Wildeboor from Jayhawks Slant, Kansas rival site. How are you, man? Appreciate you as always.
No, man, I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to this segment, and I know you guys. We'll get into it earlier. You guys were talking about Hunter, and I said it off air. I think Hunter is probably more excited than the Indiana fan, so I'm looking forward to the matchup. I know Indiana's coming off a tough loss, but I expect the Hoosiers to be ready tomorrow, no doubt.
That wasn't a loss. That was just an ass whipping.
I'll let you say it.
I said it. It was an ass whipping. And I'd say a few other things, but I don't want to go down that road.
Well, when a team I think Auburn was 14. I mean, when you hit 14, when you give up
29
threes, right? And I think Indiana was 6 of. I know the most threes they've hit all season is 6, which was Auburn, and they've struggled to shoot the ball. I think they're 31 of 113 all season. So tomorrow, when we can get into it, I think tomorrow whoever has some success from the perimeter might be the team that walks away successful, because Kansas isn't much of a shooting team either. They've hit a few more threes, but tomorrow's going to be an interesting matchup for sure.
Well, and that's a team that Indiana generally has a shot against because they haven't done a good job of defending the three. They haven't prioritized shooting it, but they have done a poor job of defending it. Early in the year against teams like Wright State and Army and Harvard, those teams just went off on Indiana with 3-point shooting. But Indiana had an interior presence that is so superior that they were beating those teams like that. But you cannot beat teams that have some capability of hitting 3-point shots that also have capability in the paint. And that's where you're starting to get into when you play teams like Kansas. Hunter Dickinson, for example, he can play inside with the big boys, or he can step it out and knock it down from behind the arc. But Indiana has a guy in Kalel Ware not as experienced as Hunter is that can do that. So that's going to be very interesting matchup as well.
Right, and it's to me. We asked Bill about this yesterday. How they're gonna defend? Is it Kel-El or Kel-El?
Kel-El.
Kel-El, yeah, how they're going to defend Kel-El well. And, he said that it won't be as much as Hunter as you think. I mean, they're going to put Hunter on him. I expect a significant amount, but they're going to throw some different looks at him. He made an interesting point about Hunter in saying that Hunter wasn't necessarily a power big man. He can score in the post, but he's also a guy that's going to step outside. So I anticipate they're going to give Ware some different looks. And to me, listen, if Malik and Kel-El have career nights, and this is a game to me, Jim, where I could see, I know Indiana struggled shooting the ball. This is a game that happens every year for Kansas. It's right before Christmas break. They're facing a team that's coming off a really tough loss, and that team out of nowhere hits 15 of 33s. Their big man has a career game. The fans are going wild. Indiana gets back on track. So to me, this is a game that's really going to test Kansas. And I think it's going to start down low with Kel-El, and it's going to be, to me, interesting to see how they match up, how they adjust, and what happens when Indiana hits them with a run and how they respond. I mean, I imagine Assembly is going to be packed. That place is going to be rocking. It'll probably be one of the best 3 or 4 atmospheres Kansas plays in front of all season. First road game, and they're going to be tested.
Oh, it's the atmosphere will unquestionably be off the charts. That I guarantee you, just because Indiana does not fail ever in that regard.
Right.
We talked about traveling last year. Several people told me that the Indiana contingent that was in Kansas was the most visiting fans they'd ever seen in Fog Island.
It was unbelievable. Unbelievable atmosphere by the Indiana fans. I mean, they showed up and they showed out and they were loud, and you could tell they made their presence known, and it was unreal. I hadn't seen it before. I've been covering this team 21 years, and I don't remember seeing anything like that before.
And they do travel, but that has not transferred over onto the court, unfortunately. Right. Indiana has built their troubles are strictly in the backcourt right now. You've got Xavier Johnson, who's out. Their senior point guard, and a freshman has been thrust into that position. He's done fine. Gabe Cupps has done a good job at managing things, but scoring has not been something he's added to that, except for he did start in the Auburn game. He started the game with a 3-point shot, which was a little amazing. And then Indiana hit 3 more in a row. Indiana had 4 consecutive 3-point shots in that game to start it with, which tied the most season for a season at the time. But they didn't hit another 3-point shot until 7 minutes to go in the game. They just don't prioritize it. And there's not sets for that. Mackenzie Mbako, without question, is probably the best shooter on that team. It just has not been able to show up yet. He's not been able to get his confidence, I guess. But they're also I don't know that the offense is being run. It's still running through the middle, the center, as it has for the last 2 years. And it's not that they don't have great players and options there. Besides Kel-El Ware, you've got Malik Renew. Both guys are very good on the interior. Both guys can step out and shoot to a degree, but you've got to have guard play in which not only do they score, but they defend the 3, and Indiana has not done a great job in that area, and that is where they're going to have to if they have any thought of upsetting Kansas.
Yeah, and I think the thing that Kansas has going for it, a couple things really, Jim. They've got the experience factor. Obviously, you've got Hunter Dickinson that's played in a lot of big-time games. You got Kevin McCullough played in a lot of big-time games. KJ Adams played in a lot of big-time games. And DeJuan Harris. So you got 3 or 4 starters, 3 or 5 starters back from last year. To me, Jim, DeJuan Harris has not been the player that he's capable of being. He's turning the ball over really more than he has been his first couple years at Kansas. Not scoring the basketball. Teams are daring him to shoot, and he's not shooting. Last week, KJ Adams Missouri really sagged off KJ Adams and Marco Jackson, KU star freshman. If Kansas is going to be successful tomorrow, they're going to have to hit shots. Indiana is going to present them with that opportunity. The question is, whether they're going to be able to hit those shots. And to me, that's and as I mentioned, Bill Self mentioned it yesterday. The team that is most successful from the perimeter tomorrow is probably going to walk away from the win. And I mean, listen, Kansas has been tested. They played Marquette. They played Kentucky. They played Tennessee. They played Connecticut. But they haven't played any of these teams on the road. So the question is, how do they respond tomorrow? And I think that'll be a big key for them in terms of the level of their success they're able to have in Bloomington.
Yeah, Indiana's average of 3.4 made three-pointers per game is almost 5 fewer made shots on average than Kansas, who they're averaging 8 per game. That right there that's enough of a difference, with all things else being equal, that Indiana is going to have to step up and hit some shots tomorrow.
Right.
They're going to have to find a way to get 3-point shooters open and to knock them down. Whether it's Trey Galloway, who is not really had confidence in taking that shot this year, or Mackenzie Mbako, who just steps up and gets it done. Because, like I said, he's hit the first 21 free throws of his IU career. He hasn't missed yet. Not to jinx him, but that's, when you're a freshman, that's pretty damn good to be able.
Right.
I mean, I know we're talking about free throws here, but this is over however many games now. That's focus, and his shooting is unquestionable. It's just not translated to the court yet, and a little bit of surprise. So it makes you wonder, are they getting him the right opportunities? And I don't still think that they have, because of what the focus has been. Mike Woodson is going to have to make some alterations, and he has been resistant to really changing. His substitution patterns has drawn a lot of criticism. He has been basically around the 8-minute mark, taking a chunk of his guys out. He did that last week against Auburn with a 12-point lead, and when the starters came back in, that lead was gone.
Wow. Well, yeah. Well, I can tell you, Kansas, an emphasis will be the perimeter, defending the perimeter with, with Kevin McCullough, DeJuan Harris, Johnny Furphy, some of those guys, Nick Timberlake off the bench. They will have to be ready to defend. Last year, I believe DeJuan Harris was the Big 12 Defender of the Year. Kevin McCullough was up for the National Defender of the Year. So they've got guys to defend. And let me tell you this, Jim, if it comes down to free throws tomorrow, that's going to be interesting, because Kansas has had some games where they have flat out, they couldn't hit the deep into the ocean. They've had some games where really, listen, they're 9-1, only lost to Marquette, but they've had some games where they've really had to sweat some games out. That Connecticut game, they missed some free throws, hit some free throws late. They've had other games where they have really struggled from the free throw line. So listen, I don't know what the spread is tomorrow. I'm not a big spread guy. I don't normally check that out, but I can tell you this: tomorrow's game won't be decided until the very end. I mean, I expect this game to go right down to the buzzer. I'm interested to see how, and we kind of touched on this, how Hunter Dickinson responds. He's had some games now where he's kind of been a little bit chippy. Last week against, I think it was Eastern Illinois, maybe, he kind of pushed a guy to the ground. The flagrant foul was called. Wow. You guys have seen him. Yeah, you guys know Hunter. You guys know how he's fired up. He doesn't hold back. He's been really good, averaging close to 20 and 12. I think he leads the nation in rebounding at 12.6. He's hitting close to 60% of his threes. But when he gets in a hostile environment and things are going, he doesn't hold back. So I'm interested to see. This will be the first true road test, and I'm interested to see how this team responds and, maybe how they react to some adversity on the road.
Well, I would bet that the students show up early and often for Indiana tomorrow. And by early, I mean as soon as they can get in. And once they do, it didn't happen a lot, but I've seen it. Games like this, the minute they get in, they're going to be on Hunter Dickinson's ass. And
Absolutely.
I'm talking about 60 minutes before the game. They will be in his ear, chirping on him. And that's definitely something to keep an eye out for them, because they, like you said, Hunter Dickinson is no stranger to the Simon Scott Assembly Hall, and neither are the students. And in Indiana, with the largest student contingent of 7,000, they're heard. They sometimes I don't like what I hear from them. I'll be honest with you.
Right.
But they're 18, 19, 20-year-old students, and they will be there making it loud.
Right. And it's not.
Well,
I don't know what's going to happen.
Actually, here's a good point. The students are on break right now, so it'll be interesting how many do show up.
Well, here's what I do know. Throw the records aside, but both blue blood programs. The one thing I will say, Jim, is that Kansas has been tested, and I expect them to be ready tomorrow. Now, if Indiana comes out and has an Auburn-type performance from behind the arc, I don't know if any team can prepare themselves for that unless you can match 3 for 3. And I don't see Kansas doing that. I know I've followed this team long enough to know that strange things are going to happen tomorrow. I believe that wholeheartedly. Indiana's going to come out. They're going to play aggressive. They're going to wear the ball. Malik's going to do his thing. They're going to hit shots. And Kansas is going to have to play extremely well tomorrow. Bill's going to burn some early timeouts. There's going to be some frustration. They're going to have to weather the storm. And how they respond early on tomorrow will dictate how that game plays out. I don't care if Indiana got beat by 70. I don't care that UConn beat them by 20. None of that's going to matter tomorrow when Kansas comes to town, and it never does.
Yeah, that's one thing that Indiana had been known for is didn't matter the situation. If a top 5 team came into Assembly Hall, it was just going to be a fist fight.
Right.
Just a knockdown fist fight because of pride and all of that. I don't know if that has changed much now because how college basketball has changed with so many different players. But the fact that part of that change is Hunter Dickinson being on Kansas. So there's not going to be a lot of change there. I promise you. It's going to be interesting. I hope it is an absolute barn burner of a game. There is nothing that can match that better because as I know you heard in the break, what an absolute crazy day in the state of Indiana. After Indiana hosts number 3 Kansas, you've got number 2 or number 3 Purdue hosting number 1 Arizona.
Oh wow!
And so that takes place at 4:30. So, but also at the same time, the Indianapolis Colts are hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. So
go Colts!
All of that is going on
Wow.
Saturday. It's crazy. There is I wish to gosh though they would have made that NFL game a night game, say 7:30.
Right,
man. You talk about hitting the Triple Crown. Wow, that would have been fun to do.
It'll be a crazy day tomorrow, man. I expect a great game, and I'm looking forward to it. And let the chips fall where they may. I expect a really highly contested game. It'll be competitive, and I think it'll be one of the better games of the year.
Kansas earlier this year, the NCAA gave them a nice pass and slap on the wrist, and that angered a lot of people. But you know what? That has been all but forgotten, basically, because it is what it is, and that's where we are in college athletics today. But the change in college athletics has been crazy. And one of the newest thing, though, is I don't know what's going to happen with these second-time transfer guys, because now they're all filing lawsuits against the NCAA, which I agreed with the rule personally. There's no way in God's green earth that you should be able to just move from team to team to team like that. Professionals do not have that freedom. And if you're now getting paid, I think that if you're going to allow that, then you should allow some type of minimum 2-year commitment at a place to hold them there. That's just me, but I'd like to see that, because I think it's going to kind of screw the college world up. Football, basketball, the whole deal.
Right, I agree. And here's the thing, Jim. I've been fortunate enough to be in this thing 21 years, and I've heard, pardon my language, there's some pissed off coaches that recruited some of these 2 years guys that kind of backed off because they thought they weren't going to be eligible to play, and now here they are. There's a ruling. They can play now. And listen, and I've got a son that's a junior, halfway through his junior year, and we talk all the time about commitment, finishing what you start. When times get hard, when things don't go the way you want right now in college athletics or whatever the case may be, it's so easy to jump ship. Hey, I don't want to do this. It's too hard. Hey, this guy's coming in. He's going to beat me out. Hey, I'm not getting the shots I want. Hey, they're playing me out of a position. Hey, my guardian says I should do. And it's just like, okay, so where's the accountability? What are we doing here? So I completely agree with you, man. Okay, one-time transfer, great. Now we're transferring 2 and 3 times. It's like, where are we going with this? And when does it end? When does two teams become 3 teams? And then when are we leaving it semester? And when are we getting like KU had a guy, Jim, and he was a great kid, Marcus Adams Jr. Committed last year, arrived. He was from LA, arrived in the summer, spent 2 weeks on campus, left. Okay, left. Didn't fit. Wasn't what he thought it was going to be. Didn't get along with the guys, whatever the case may be. Went to Gonzaga, I think 10 days later. Committed, signed, was enrolled, left. Didn't like it. Didn't get along with whatever the case may be. Now he's at BYU. Hasn't played yet. It's going through the whole process of trying to get eligible and trying to get on the court. It's like, so when does it end? So it gets hard and we just decide to quit. So I agree with you. It's you got to show some toughness. You got to battle through some things because when you're 45 and you're not liking your job or they tell you to do something you don't want to do, you got to get through that. You just I'm quitting. Well, I got a family now. I got kids. How do I put all that stuff? So it's kind of a trickle down effect. It starts early and then, like I tell my son, man, life isn't always easy. You gotta battle through some stuff. So I'm on board with you, man. I completely agree with everything.
Shay Wildeboor from Jayhawks Slant, Kansas Rivals. Looking forward to hopefully a great game tomorrow at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Man, I can't thank you enough for joining us.
All right, man. You guys have a good day, good weekend, good holiday, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you, Shay. Shay Wildeboor from Jayhawks Slant joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got a lot more coming up. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, Pat Graham and Sherron Wilkerson in the next hour. We're back with that right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. That was great segment.
He was really good. I know we've had him on before.
He's had the energy, baby. He's got the energy.
I don't remember, and this isn't trying to be a slight to him. I don't remember him being that good of a segment last time he was on here.
Well,
I don't remember.
I don't remember the segment. So I mean, I know he's been on, but
it was just last year when Indiana played Kansas.
I'd like to know. I wish I had a list of all the guests that we've had ever. That would be wild.
It would be wild, wouldn't it?
And there's no way for me to go back to the early ones.
Mm-hmm. Because they weren't recorded.
Lost to the annals of time.
Yep.
Hey, John Boy?
Yes.
Not to make things more difficult, but is there a copy of this? Yeah, I'm going to have you send me a copy of if this entire, well, I'll tell you about it afterwards.
Go ahead and tell me now if you don't mind.
I'd rather not.
Is it going to take a while?
No, I just didn't really want to. I'll text
that's fine. Let me let Zach know we're ready for him just in case he's.
He'll be, you know how he is. He's probably dealing with a kid or something. He's fine.
Okay. I'll leave it be then. All right, here we go. So there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hank's Pizza Mac. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday before a gigantic sports weekend in the state of Indiana. Welcome aboard, Zach Osterman, as usual, from the Indy Star, and make sure you're a subscriber to keep up on things. I was reading the paper last night, Zach. I was over at the Bloomington Country Club, just went over there to eat, and just sitting there holding the paper was glorious. I still do not read as much if it's not in the paper. I miss that. I know I'm old school, but man, oh man, I don't want that to ever go away. How are you doing, by the way?
I'm great. How about you?
Good. Fresh with your Auburn sweatshirt on, I see.
Oh, this is just some old, I don't know. I just pulled it on. I mean, I don't. My stepmother's whole family went to Auburn. And so I've got, when I was younger and I was like 12 years old, I was really into it. And nowadays, obviously, in my job, I probably shouldn't even be wearing this just for objectivity's sake. But I've just got a bunch of, sort of well-worn old sweatshirts of all different varieties. Weirdly, I think I have a Villanova basketball jersey somewhere in my closet that I got when I was like 14. So yeah.
I personally love all that stuff, as a matter of fact. Any especially things that are iconic, I love it. But I will say that I was going to one of the fall camp practices a couple of years ago at Indiana. And I was just wearing I don't even know what it was, just a pullover from Charlotte. This has probably been 4 years ago. And Charlotte had barely, this was their first year in Division I, I think. My brother was the head of security for them. He was a state trooper, and he'd sent me some stuff. And I just came in. I didn't pay attention to what I was wearing. Boy, our guy did, not the coach, but our friend JK. Boy, he gave me a good one over that. I was like, really? I was like, man, they stink. They suck. You can't be caring about them. Ironically, they're on Indiana's schedule next year.
They are. That's right. Yeah, no, it's like I said, you just pick up. I think this may actually be a home field sweatshirt, which they're super comfortable. But you pick up so much stuff. I mean, I think my wife still wears the Pinstripe Bowl t-shirt I gave her. And, when you do this long enough, between obviously old family gifts and whatever, and, stuff you get complimentary at events, and you find yourself with all kinds of, just like in college, if you ever needed a hoodie, just join a fraternity or sorority, you'd get 5 of them a year for homecoming and Little Five and God knows what else. This business will knock a whole lot of clothing your way.
There's no doubt about that. Indiana this weekend taking on Kansas, as we've talked about. Before I get to that, earlier we were talking about Curt Cignetti, the job that he's doing right now. Football, I said this earlier, for things that I would put out or tweet, whatever, football just never moved the needle. And right now, virtually everything that you put out that needle is popping. There's hope by the Indiana fans, which is, I love seeing that from them, because they have, if there's any fan base that deserves the right to go, yeah, I believe it when I see it. But that hasn't been the case. They've seemed to really be getting behind this hire, getting behind what he's doing. And there's a lot of optimism for fans. And I'm not saying that they should be optimistic of going 9-3 and winning yada, yada right now next season. But the fact that there's optimism, I'm happy for them to see that. It's fun to see that. And it's going to be interesting because I think he is doing a good job at what he is getting to where he wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, listen, these are the easiest days in a coach's tenure in some respects. You haven't really lost a recruitment yet. You certainly haven't lost a game yet. Obviously, they're not easy in terms of everything you've got to do. And it seems like he and his staff are covering a lot of ground pretty quickly. I would say, I think in a weird way, that this time has, I want to say it's gotten easier for coaches, but I think the whole part, with transfers and kids having to move so quickly through that process, I think everything does get a little more streamlined. You're able to just say, hey, why don't you come to our campus? There's a little bit less like, oh, we're going to get out to all these practices and all these in-home visits, although they're doing those too. But like, there's also just a lot of like, hey, we got a kind of a home base here, and we're just going to be bringing a lot of transfer recruits through. They're probably going to visit 3-4 different schools in the space of, a week and a half. So we're just going to kind of keep running them through. And it doesn't seem like they're overly sort of, what is the word I'm looking for? They are overly sort of, publicizing, I guess. They're just, I mean, we're picking up on these visits because the kids are tweeting about them, not because anybody's sort of trying to say, oh, look at all these visitors, whatever. It seems like Cignetti and his staff really only kind of get on social media when stuff has happened and sort of talk about that. Obviously the Curtis Rourke commitment last week, and some others, or not last night, like yesterday afternoon, not last week, yesterday afternoon. Sorry. But it's just, I mean, this is a time when a coach has a lot of momentum, and it seems like Cignetti and his staff are using it. I mean, the Rourke commitment, frankly, was getting a lot of positive play yesterday outside the Indiana bubble. And, I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm done knowing what's a sure thing and what's not in college athletics, whether it's coaching hires or transfers or whatever. But it just does seem like they've got the momentum. They know they've got the momentum, and they're using it.
Absolutely, and it's going to be interesting to see how that continues, and to see which guys decide to still come back that are in the portal for Indiana. I think the most important name right now would probably be Donovan McCulley.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I mean, everybody can kind of speak for themselves. I think McCulley is, personally, I think McCulley is on the verge of being really, really good. And I think he is, you saw over the back part of last season, I forget what the exact numbers were, but those last 5 games where he really kind of turned it on. If you took his numbers, and this is an imperfect science because obviously those last 5 games, none of them were against Michigan, Ohio State, etc. But if you took his numbers from those 5 games and you played them out across the course of a 12-game season, he would have had a 1,000-yard season. He would have had 12 touchdowns, and all of his catches, yards, and scores would be top 3 numbers in the Big Ten this year. And again, that's imperfect. You can't sit here and say, oh, that's exactly what he would have done. But the point is, that's the kind of talent he showed. That's the kind of, we had been waiting since he moved from receiver or from quarterback to receiver, and Tom Allen and others talked so much about, they thought, they believed he could be such a good receiver. He just kind of needed to figure out where his ceiling was. And we kept kind of waiting for that to happen. And it did feel like it clicked. And I'm not even trying to take anything away from Brendan Sorsby, but I thought that it was noticeable that Sorsby's, leap, if you want to say, in the season really seemed to coincide with having a legitimate number 1 target in Donovan McCulley that he could go to a lot in some of those games where he put up big numbers. So if they can get McCulley back, and my read of it is that there may be more of a chance of that now than I would have thought there was at the beginning of this week. You know, Michigan's involved, Texas A&M. I don't know if this is true or not, but I think Notre Dame has certainly been floated. I think some other Southern schools, even maybe ones that he hasn't publicized, or maybe they haven't offered, but they've at least kind of checked in on him. If you could get him back, I mean, I think 24/7 Sports has him as the number 10 receiver in the transfer portal. That's, if you pulled that player with those numbers out of the portal from Vanderbilt,
Arizona State or wherever.
Yeah, like you'd be like, and then you watch this film, you'd be like, that's a really promising player. Indiana might be able to do something there. Keeping him, if they can, would be a real shot in the arm next season.
Well, and landing Curtis Rourke, the quarterback from Ohio, that is a veteran quarterback, as a matter of fact, and has one season left of eligibility, but he's a guy that has thrown for nearly 8,000 yards in his career, 50 touchdowns. That is probably something that Indiana needs to land him back.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt. I think I saw something like, I think Rourke had something like a 90-plus grade on Pro Football Focus the last 2 years. Obviously, he tore his ACL at the end of the 2022 season. He was still able to come back and be pretty productive this year from that. But I think it's always going to help if you're recruiting a higher level receiver, or in this case, maybe re-recruiting is probably the better way to put it. It's always going to help if you can kind of say, well, we know the quarterback that you really kind of built that sync up with, that chemistry with last year's gone, but this is the guy we're bringing in, and here's our history. Curt Cignetti and his staff have a pretty good history with transfer quarterbacks in particular. I think they had multiple transfer quarterbacks win Sun Belt Player of the Year or at least Conference Player of the Year during their time at James Madison. So suddenly, that sales pitch becomes a little bit more real and a little bit more sort of clear cut. And, if you're Indiana, I think that the best you can do, you've got some NIL resources. I am confident that Indiana has put some pretty substantial, NIL opportunities on the table for Donovan McCulley. That doesn't necessarily guarantee it. Other schools might do it too. But this is the other thing you find with, kids now is a lot of guys enter the portal because they want to know what their value is. They want, it's a risky thing, sure, but they want to know what's out there. And you might get, this is total hypothetical. Please understand that. This is not me sort of saying out loud what someone has whispered to me privately. But you might get a situation where, Indiana is offering, you're going to be our number one receiver. We're going to pay you X dollars, and we're going to guarantee you that if you're healthy, you're going to have just an absolute leading role in our offense. And Penn State, is a team that's offered McCulley. I don't think he's visited State College at this point, unless it happened privately. Penn State might say, hey, you can come play at Penn State and, have more of a chance of a Rose Bowl or a Cotton Bowl or whatever. But it's less money in terms of NIL opportunities, and you're going to be competing with three other guys to, for one of those top two boundary spots. And so suddenly maybe McCulley says, well, I might actually give Indiana a little bit more of a try. It's always a sliding scale, I guess, is kind of my point. It's not necessarily – I think we all feared that NIL might just mean the big teams got to stockpile all the talent. And I think what's happened is, as schools that weren't just naturally going to build an NIL war chest, just from Ohio State fans being like, yeah, we just want to win, whatever it takes to win. We'll just, football's our priority. And I think you're seeing this a little bit more in the other direction for schools like Indiana in basketball, where maybe Indiana's NIL sort of advantage was greater before other schools started to figure out how to, filter that money down, so to speak, football schools. But I think what we are seeing in fairness is that as maybe some of the schools that needed a little bit more time to figure out how to build those NIL resources out have been able to do that, suddenly it's not as simple as saying, well, Michigan offered, so I'm leaving. I'm out of your league now. I think that listen, McCulley may not come back. This is not me saying it's locked in, it's guaranteed, no question. But it is something where I think, what you're seeing a little bit is as NIL resources at schools like Indiana have expanded, suddenly, you're not going to beat the Alabamas and the Michigans for players they absolutely want, but you might be able to be a little bit more appealing to players that might be looking at those schools and saying, yeah, the name value is great, but what's my role? What are my opportunities? Am I going to get buried in the depth chart? Is there, just to be frank, is there more money going back the other way? So
that's going to wrap it up, man. I appreciate you so much. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow as Indiana will be hosting the number 2 Kansas Jayhawks. So that's going to be a big day in Indiana as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me as always, Jim.
You bet. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Up next, Pat Graham and Sherron Wilkerson, 2 former Hoosier good ones that are taking on each other on the high school court tomorrow. But we'll also work in some IU basketball as well. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Well, it's at our...
Hello, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Mr. Patrick, Mr. Shiron, how are you, sir?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. How long's it been since you guys have seen each other, probably?
June, up in Indy.
Oh, well, that is not that damn far then.
Mr. Coyle, I love to see him every chance I get, my friend.
I'm sure. Who wouldn't? If you're using your phone, could you turn it sideways?
Absolutely.
There you go. It gives us a full picture.
Absolutely.
The last time it's not the last time I saw him, but the time before the last time I saw him was at Dagwoods. He was in there getting his Dagwoods on. He had to stop in there, man. But that's one of my favorite sandwiches, I got to say. How have you both been? Shiron, how are things going with you, man? I just remember
we're not on the air yet.
I know. I'm
okay.
just
kind of like you were in interview mode when you asked that question.
You're right. I got these 2 great guys on, man. It's hard not to get jacked up.
I'm doing great, fellas. Doing great, man. Just living life, trying to get these young men and student athletes going down the right path.
Let's see. Ed asking, does Jeffersonville play Central still? Of course they do. Well, that's a crazy question there, man. That's like automatic. Plus they're both in the Hoosier Hills Conference.
Living down in Evansville ever since I graduated or left IU and dealing with Memorial and Harrison. And, I still got a little itch about Jeffersonville. Everybody always asks me about my rivals, and I always say Jeffersonville, and everybody goes, I thought it was New Albany. I'm like, New Albany wasn't worth they weren't very good back in our day. Of course, they beat us my senior year, but Jeffersonville was always the thorn in my side.
Well, they were so athletic with guys like Shiron and man. Mike Broughton your coach?
He was. He sure was. Yeah,
you know where he lives now?
I do. He lives in Seymour.
Yes, so he could be exactly in the middle between Jeffersonville and Indianapolis, and that is not a joke. That's exactly why.
What's he do?
He is he's runs the All-Star thing for one. But
that's right. Yep. You see, I played against Bixler. Shiron, you never played for Bixler, did you? He passed.
No, he actually the year I would have played for him, Pat. He actually passed away of a brain injury.
Because his wife taught at Floyd Central.
Yeah, she's a wonderful lady. Wonderful lady.
I mean, I never played against Broughton, and I guess Broughton was down here at Castle in Evansville.
10 seconds, guys.
Before he came there or whatever. So yeah, it's always kind of a weird.
Is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday of an unbelievably spectacular sports weekend ahead, especially in regards to basketball. You've got Indiana hosting number 2 Kansas tomorrow at 12:30 on CBS. Then number 3 Purdue hosts number 1 Arizona at 4:30. In addition to the Colts hosting the Steelers, but even bigger than that, you've got Evansville Harrison taking on Jeffersonville tomorrow. And 2 of the combatants in that, Sherron Wilkerson, the head coach of Jeffersonville, former IU player, and Pat Graham, an assistant with Harrison now, had moved over from Memorial, who Memorial tonight plays Trent Sisley in Heritage Hills. So the connections just don't stop. First of all, thank you both for taking time to come on here today, man. It's awesome to have you both on.
Thank you.
It's wonderful, man. I really appreciate it, Mr. Coyle.
It's always, oh man, Jim, please, it's always a pleasure to have Shiron on and Pat both. But Shiron has just become one of the greatest citizens in this country, man. I mean, like, you should run for office, maybe.
No, I really appreciate that, Jim. I will be honest with you. In fact, I just told my team the story of the first time officially meeting Pat at IU. I mean, man, I've had so many people in my life that have for me been guardian angels. I mean, man, and not everybody obviously looks at it like that, but I remember the first time that I stepped on the floor at IU in Bloomington, and Pat introduced himself, and he made sure that I got the message of what it meant to be an IU basketball player. And man, I appreciate that more than he realized it to that day. So yeah, and that's a factual story.
And I'm sure that, and I'll get to Pat on that, but at the time as a freshman and getting that, it was probably a little shocking, but was it? Or was it just something that was educational?
No, I'll be honest, it was an honor. I mean, man, to have a guy like Pat Graham come up and tell you, man, it basically, he put me in my place. I can't say on air exactly what he told me, but he put me in my place. And I mean, man, and that immediately, man, the respect was immediately given. So I just, man, I'm just so thankful.
And how impactful was that?
I'll tell this story because I've told this story a number of times. I think Shiron enjoys coaching, and I spoke to his team last year when he was down here in Evansville, and I think Shiron does it for a lot of the same reasons that I do it. But Shiron, of course, I was a fifth-year senior, and I went through 2 years of hell with my injuries, and I was kind of not in a very good spot with dealing with any BS, and I was just fighting to play another game at my last year, and Shiron comes in, of course, beyond talented, Steve Hart, some of those other guys. And we had a couple open gyms, and Shiron was pretty headstrong. Let's just say it that way. And I got called in by Coach Knight. And basically he told me I have total control of Shiron or I'm off the team. And I was kind of like, look, we're from the same area. We didn't go to the same high school. You know, I hate Jeff, blah, 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 all that. And he said, I don't care. You take control of him or you're off the team. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So go across the hallway. Me and Shiron have a little discussion. And this is what I will say. And this is honest God truth. And I've told this story 100 times. Shiron within 1 hour did a 180. That day, that workout we had, he was a different person. And I talked to him later about it. And he basically said, I'd never had anyone speak to me that way and demand that way and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying I'm the reason that did it, but I did know I didn't have much rope to because Coach Knight was going to hang me with it, So I said, I have to go talk to Shiron. I have to handle it. And we got to get this done quickly because I don't, Coach ain't going to play. And sure enough, that's how it happened. But yeah, that 180 within an hour. And I thought, man, Shiron's the most coachable kid I've ever been around.
That's awesome to hear and amazing to hear, because did you have anybody do that for you or need to do that for you when you got there? Because I know you were not, you played for Joe Hinton, so you were kind of prepared for Bob Knight.
I I had a little bit more fear going there. I don't think Shiron had much fear, and just the way it was. I mean, it's every kid's different, and again, we were 17, 18-year-old idiots basically, and know-it-alls, and we were told how great we were when we were in high school, and then when we get to college, it was a completely different story. And Shiron probably needed a little help with that, but like I said, I'm not saying it because he's on the air with me right now and I can see his face. I'm just telling you, I spoke to Shiron. I think Evans had someone else. I don't think his message went as well as mine did. And I just flat said, "Look, man, I'm done. I don't have any time. I don't have, I'm running out of time. I've lost 2 years of playing basketball." And we had a little come to Jesus talk, and I'm, like I said, 180, 1 hour, 60 minutes. He was another player. When he broke shattered his, the spiral break in the NCAA tournament, I mean, I cried. I mean, it was awful. And he was one of the best. And I've said it. People ask me all the time, who's your best teammates, blah, blah, blah. And Shiron Wilkerson's name's always there. And I'm not saying it because he's on the air with me here right now.
He was a talent, state champion, all-star, every accolade you can imagine, as were you. So Indiana was full. You talk about talent, and we talk about the inability of Indiana's three-point shooting right now. The other day, I was looking back in the record book, Pat, specifically, and I was looking at for career all-time three-point shooting. Not just you, of course. You're up there right behind Steve Alford and Jay Edwards, who had just micro seasons, but 5 of the top 11 all-time three-point shooters were on that damn team. 5 of 11 all time. That's crazy. I mean, of course, Todd Leary's at 11th. You've got Greg Graham, Calbert Chaney, Damon Bailey, yourself. It's just nuts. And then the other 2 of the others are Edwards and Alford, who were just immediately before you guys. So that short period of time is still to this day the bulk of the all-time three-point shooting for Indiana. And I think that's kind of a problem. It shows that Indiana has not continued that, because you've got to have some guys where Jordan Hulls is up there, of course, Nick Zeisloff, and then Christian Watford, Armand Bissett rounding it out. But no one has broken into that since 2014. So that, to me, that kind of shows, oh man, you got to get somebody. There's got to be every 10 years or so, somebody's got to jump in to that category.
Here's the weird thing about three-point shooting. And I know there's 1,000 things to talk about, and there's 1,000 opinions, and there's, whatever. And to be honest with you, I'm not saying I'm right and everyone's wrong. I'm just saying this is one of my views on it. I think the Big Ten, I think the three-point line come in my senior year, maybe my junior year. I don't even really remember, but here, and this is the reason I say that. Joe Hinton never talked about it. My high school coach never spoke about it. Blaine Duss and Joe never brought the three-point line up. I can remember I shot a shot on the line one time in practice, the very first or second practice, we had the line down. And I remember Joe pulling me aside and said, "This is a bad shot." And my foot was on the line, and he stepped back 6 inches and he said, "This is a good shot." And that's the only thing that was ever brought up about it. He basically was saying, "I don't mind you shooting this shot. Don't think about it. Don't look down at the line, but you've got to be behind the line to get 3 instead of 2. It's the same shot, basically." Then you go to Bloomington with Shiron and with the Baileys and the Learys and the Evanses and all those guys. I don't really remember the three-point line being discussed. It wasn't talked about. We didn't run plays for the three-point line. It was there. It was a very small piece of the offense, but it wasn't the offense. I watch college basketball now, and Shiron knows this as good as good or better than I do. In high school, that's the whole offense. It's either dunks, layups, or three-point shots. And I have a tough time coaching that way because it's so foreign to me. And I don't know. And again, why Indiana has struggled at the 3-point line, I can't answer that. But it's just such an odd. To me, it's a different time, and it's just different than what that was back then. I don't think if those guys played today, I don't think we would shoot the percent. Hell, we may shoot better. I don't know. I would love to play today's. I would love to play if you shoot 3 or 4 or 5 or miss them, keep firing them. I would love to do that. Leary and I talk about that all the time, but I mean, the game has just completely changed.
Shiron, as well, you're head coach at Jeffersonville now, and you have to handle that. Today's kids are influenced by what they see, and so that in itself has to be a battle.
I think one of the biggest things, or one of the litmus tests, if you will, is the European game. I think if you look at the NBA, these European players have come over here, and all of them have pretty much have made athleticism obsolete. You know, you look at Jokic, he's one of the best players in the NBA, but his skill set is just so far and above most of the guys in the NBA, man, that it sets him apart. And I think that is that's a huge advantage. And man, I looked at a list the other day of the top 10 players in the NBA, and I believe 7 of them were European players. And I think that 2 reasons. Number one, because they win. And then number 2, no matter the position, no matter the height, they all can dribble, pass, and shoot it. And those are the skill sets that you have to have in the game of basketball to be successful. And I think that it starts with our grassroots here. You know, in the European leagues, guys, you have to go through a certification for 2 years to be able to coach. And specifically here in our country, in our grassroots level, I think that's where we're losing the battle. Because we allow people who necessarily, obviously, I think have the right intent, obviously, but the information, we need to get those grassroots guys the right information, so we're able to continue to build our basketball legacy here in the United States. So that's just my personal opinion.
And I agree with you, because they have been so influential. You look at Doncic down in Dallas, his guard play, it's crazy. Speaking of guard play, that has been a thorn in Indiana's side right now. They've got great interior play, but they don't have guys like either of you right now. With Xavier being hurt, you would be Xavier Johnson, the guy that can get to the rim, that can threaten that defense or put the ball up. And in Pat, you're just an unbelievable threat from outside. They don't have that. They don't have that guy who is a threat to get to the rim right now or to shoot the 3. And that's proving to be pretty difficult for a team that is running most of their offense through the middle.
Yeah, well, but again, I'll go back and say, a couple years ago we were saying, man, it's been a long time since we had a 7-footer. Now all of a sudden you got a 7-footer. So sometimes you might not have everything you need or want, but man, we got a hell of a piece in the middle now that we haven't had in a long time. So, there's a lot of give and take. The shooting thing, I still go back and I watched the Auburn game as much as I could. And, my opinion was, and I think it's pretty blatantly obvious, is their speed versus our speed. I joked with a buddy of mine, said it's the SEC football versus the Big Ten football, Big Tens, big linemen and all this stuff. A few years ago, everybody's talking about the SEC and they're all speed and everything. I said, man, my God, I'm watching the SEC Big Ten football a few years ago. And it was just the quickness and speed. Pearl had lathered up, and they were, they wanted to win so bad it wasn't even funny. And good for him. That's what he does. Great coach in that respect. But I mean, I just felt like we were in quicksand looking at Auburn, and scared to say it, but I mean, Kansas is no slouch, and that's the problem. And another thing, and I'll jump on and I'll get on a tangent, but the 3-point shooting, we shot well. When we were back, we shot well because we shot good threes. We got threes. I mean, we didn't get horse threes because obviously there was a scouting report against us. But, I mean, we got good shots. It wasn't our complete and whole offense. And when you have Calbert Chaney on the floor, you got good looks because of Calbert being a threat and he carrying 2 guys on his waist and back. And so that's the reason we were such good shooters, because we got good shots. And the struggle in today's offense in college, I'm not saying it's not doable, because obviously there's a lot of teams that do it. But, man, it is a different three-point shot compared to what our three-point shot was back in the day and how we shot it.
I want to talk about your all's game coming up, but the last thing for Shiron, can you imagine if it had been Pat Knight instead of Pat Graham that gave you that talk? How that different that would have gone?
Yeah, I got to talk to both of them. Yeah.
Oh man!
Now,
how different were they? How different or similar were those two conversations?
Very similar in nature, very similar in language, very similar in the message that was received. Yeah, facts. Listen, Jim, I tell people all the time, man, and man, I was so blessed and so fortunate on so many different levels. Right, Pat mentioned his injury, and I do, and I'm not just saying this again, saying what because Pat's here. Man, I truly believe that if Pat had stayed healthy, we would be talking about him being one of the best players to ever play the game at the highest level in the NBA. I truly believe that. Man, you're talking about a guy that was athletic, a guy that could shoot it, a guy that knew how to play the game, a guy that could go. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. So I was very fortunate, man, to have guys that really cared and have guys around me that actually got it. So I couldn't ask for nothing more.
He stopped before he said the word defense. When he was giving those compliments, he stopped before he said the word defense.
Well, that was kind of optional back in the day, I think.
Oh no!
Until not when you got to Indiana, it wasn't. You scored 50 points in the game. Was that against Jeffersonville?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, my junior year.
I remember that. I couldn't remember if it. I thought it was. I couldn't remember, and I'm not throwing it out to throw it out. But I just was thinking of that. All right, now you guys are playing each other tomorrow in a high school game. Jeffersonville taking on Evansville Harrison, the former high school of Calbert Cheney. So that's got to be a cool thing for you, Pat. But how do you guys scouting each other? You calling up and say, "Hey, you want to swap films?" And that's what they did in the old days.
I honestly, well, first off, I'm the assistant coach. I'm not the head coach. Coach Cleaner is the head coach. But I've never been a head coach. Hello. I've always been an assistant. So I'm always I feel weird. Like I haven't reached out to Shiron this week because I'm like, I don't want him to feel like I'm going to ask a question or give him information or whatever. I just know how high school basketball is obviously very, very, very important. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to leave Shiron alone this week and we'll catch up before the game and whatnot. But then you said, let's do this interview. And I'm like, all right, well, he can't get away from me now. So,
well, you guys going to hang on and do some scouting afterward, do some trading of information afterwards, Shiron?
Shiron's got the best team. There's no way they can lose.
Yeah, right.
The best coaching staff, the best team, the best players. It's pretty simple.
No, yeah, I appreciate that, man. We're actually in a unique situation. So we play Silver Creek tonight, who is 6-0, and then we turn right around tomorrow and got to drive to Evansville, and we got to play Harrison. And in fact, it's kind of funny, guys, because I'm sitting here watching Harrison right now. Hey, man, you guys are really good. You guys are really, really good.
We're good right now because we're unselfish and playing together. You know how that works.
Yes.
That can end and stop real quick with some frustration. So right now we're running pretty well and enjoying it. And God, I coached at Memorial for about 10 or 12 years and I loved it. But the thing is, kids are kids. I love kids. I enjoy working with kids. And when parents and kids are fun, I'll go to the ends of the earth for them. And it's been fun last year and this year, both.
Well, man, I cannot thank you guys enough. I could do this for an hour, but I know that you both have things to do, and we appreciate you both so much. Good luck tomorrow. That's all I can say here to both of you. I hope it goes well. I hope one of you win. So I'll just say that. But I look forward to having both of you on again throughout the season and following you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
PG, hey, good luck. Happy holidays to you guys, man. Love all you guys, folks.
I'll see you tomorrow, Shiron.
See you tomorrow.
Same to you guys. Shiron Wilkerson, Pat Graham joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with Mike Woodson's press conference right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the
So how are you doing this again? I forget how you do these.
just with my phone.
Oh, okay.
I hate it because I have to hold it. And then I can't figure it out half the time.
I don't feel like this is. I mean, you do you, but
progress.
What was that?
Just somebody talking.
Oh,
you don't like the pressers going onto the show?
Yes, and it's mainly because we post them to YouTube after they're done anyway.
Right, but this gives it live.
It's one thing if the presser, like if you're
probably right.
A certain specific announcement, like for example, when Louisville lost to Arkansas State the other night, based on everything that had happened with not even just the game, but just with the program in general,
right?
That whole day, we carried the Payne press conference during part of the post-game show. But that was because of the situation surrounding it, not just to take it. But again, that's up to you.
Well, we're here now. You know what I mean, Vern?
I guess.
That was a great segment, though.
It was a good segment. Been a good show today.
I could have gone
all week, really.
I could have gone all week like that. All right, I see you. I don't know how long they could have gone. That is no doubt, man. I truly, if you can have love for someone that you don't really know personally, I mean, I know him. I've gotten to know him through doing this, but I don't think there is a human that I have more affection for than Shiron because of this very thing that you're saying, Five Lefts. He is he's just one of the greatest humans that I know right now, and he was not. I'm jealous, pure jealous. He is just an unbelievable person now, and it's great to see. All right, I got to get on here. Hold on.
That's fine. Here we go. We're coming back from break, so.
That's better than a birdie, but you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I grew up in Indianapolis. Obviously, he was a successful high school player there, and also in Indiana. Just maybe the things that stick with you most.
Well, John, as I continue to try to work with this, I hate this stupid thing. But here's the.
I've known him almost 50 years, and he impacted my life from a young
Coach
man
Woodson talking about George
in
McGinnis.
As a basketball player. Gave me an opportunity to play at an early age against him when he was a pacer in the ABA days. And it was just special for me. And I mean, we stayed in contact all these years. I played against him once I was fortunate enough to play in the NBA, and his friendship has held true all those years. And it's a tremendous loss. I mean, anytime you lose somebody like that, I mean, he was bigger than life, man. I mean, just a beautiful person. And to get all the accolades, hell, he was a better person than all the accolades that he received over the years. I mean, he was just special. So he's going to be missed.
Alex and then Mike Niz.
Coach, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. I know you were disappointed with the result last Saturday, but now that you've had some time, I guess this week to work with your team, what's been the response from them from the loss on Saturday, and what have you tried to focus on as you lead into another tough game on Saturday against Kansas?
When you experience a game like that, only thing you can do is come back and go to work. You practice to try to get better, and only time will tell. I don't know, where we are until we tip it up tomorrow at 12:30, and we'll see where we are. I mean, we come back to practice and we work. That's the only way you're going to get better. So hopefully our work this week will pay off, and we'll see where we are.
Mike and then Rebby.
Yeah, Mike, any update on Xavier Johnson's status for Saturday's game? And how have you kind of tried to, he had a tough year last year with the injury. How has he kind of navigated this stretch and kind of missing these games?
Well, it's been tough for him. I mean, you go back-to-back years where, you're not playing basketball. I mean, we went into this season expecting him to be on the floor, and he's not there. So I know it's tough on him. It's tough on us. But we got to keep marching along based on who we got in uniform until he gets back. And when that is, I don't know yet. I just don't.
Rebby, then Todd.
Yeah, good morning, Coach. Thanks for your time. I was talking to a couple of NBA scouts recently, and they liked what you've done with Ware, how you've gotten him going. What are some key things that you feel you've done to get him playing the way he is? And what do you think about the way he actually is playing?
He's playing fantastic, and the difference is he's playing harder. He's learning how to play harder, and that cures a lot of problems. He's a talented young big man, and a lot of room for growth. He's just got to keep working to play harder and to get better.
Todd, then Mason.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned on your radio show this week that you wanted to see defensive improvement, especially coming off the game against Auburn. What goes into the work of that when you have a week to work on it? What have you tried to instill in the players this week to improve defensively against a very good offensive team in Kansas?
Play harder. Fight. That's the name of the game. I thought we came out and established ourselves in the last game, but to give up 104 points is unacceptable. That's something that hadn't happened since I've been here. The Syracuse game was a couple of overtime games to get the point production out of our character. We normally fight and try to hold teams in the 60s, and to give up 100 points, you're not going to beat anybody in college basketball doing that. So we had to come back and go to work, and emphasize defense along with offense. And now we got to see where it leads us.
Mason and Jack.
Coach, kind of going off that, in dealing with the response from a result like that game, in talking with Gabe Cutts afterwards, he mentioned that there was kind of a good balance between not letting that taste go out of his mouth and kind of remembering that result, but also using it as motivation going forward. Have you seen more intent and more emphasis on those things that you wanted to get across in practice this week? Have you seen a response to that?
We've had a decent week of work. Always room for improvement, gentlemen. So only time will tell.
Jack and Mike Schumann.
Hey, Mike, just what stands out to you about Hunter Dickinson's game? Obviously, you played him the last couple of years when he was at Michigan, but I guess anything different you've seen, or what do you remember kind of about preparing for him the last few years?
Well, he's a big man that's very solid, can score down low, can shoot the three, cause a threat for a lot of the big guys that have to go against him. And we played him in Michigan, I think 4 times, and he had the one big explosion here the first time we played him, but I thought we played him pretty well from that point on. But he's having another great season. He's one of their top leading scorers, and I think he's their leading rebounder. So, He's a handful. It's somebody we're going to have to deal with tomorrow.
Mike then Zion.
Yeah, good morning, Coach. You've had some success in these high-profile home games here over the last couple of years, whether it's Purdue or North Carolina or others. I'm just curious if you do anything different with your team to just kind of keep them loose and not let the build-up get to them.
We just work. That's all we do. You practice to get better, and you emphasize you can't lose at home. That's what's important. If you're talking about winning the Big Ten title, you got to win your games at home and figure it out on the road. And when teams come in here, this is our home court, so we got to try to hold court tomorrow against a great coach team, a great talented team.
Zion and Jim.
Hey, Mike, just following up on Hunter Dickinson, how much can you use as far as the way you prepped for him at Michigan versus at Kansas, different schemes and different supporting casts? How can you prepare for him the same way, or does it have to switch?
Well, he's not changed as a player, so you got to prepare for him the same way. He can make threes, and he's great on the low block. So, nothing's changed. He's taken his act to Kansas, and he's having a stellar season so far.
Jim and Seth.
Mike, you just mentioned the threes that Hunter's able to knock down, but as a team, Kansas is averaging, I think, 8 made 3-pointers a game. In scouting and preparing for them, are you guys doing anything different to try to prevent the three ball shot from being a difference in this game? And are you doing anything to try to either encourage or work more 3-point shots into your own offense?
Guys, I'm going to say this to you for the last time. We take enough threes. We just got to make what we take. And we work defensively to defend the three. And we've had some struggles in that area. Hopefully tomorrow we will fix that, hopefully. It's all you can do. You can't, I don't predict games or anything like that. You got to go into the game and you got to put up a 40-minute ball game to beat a great team.
Seth, last one.
Mike, you talked about Xavier's status before, and obviously, you talked earlier in the week about Ja'Kai and his status. Just with the guard depth a little thinner with all of that, how do you feel like the rest of the guys, especially Gabe, have kind of adapted to, needing to be in a little bit more of an elevated role?
Well, again, you're dealing with young Gabe as a freshman, still trying to figure it out. And he gives us all he can give us. I'm very pleased with the way he's played for us. But we got to get other guys stepping up and playing. It's just that simple. And when you do that, you put yourself in position to win basketball games.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
And that wraps up the Mike Woodson press conference for today as Indiana heads into a gigantic tilt with number 2 Kansas tomorrow. You heard Mike Woodson there. Basically, not a lot other than we're working harder, which is, I guess, all you can say. But I guess you could say more if you wanted to. Just not a big speaker. But man. Royville saying, did anyone mention to Jim that due to NIL, Hunter Dickinson is most likely back in college basketball next season? I don't know that that's true. If he's projected to be a first round draft pick, he won't be, because the $1 million or so he's making now is not going to compare to a first round NBA draft pick contract. So I don't know where he is projected right now. And if you do, let me know. I would love to know so we could talk more about that. Thank you, Pete. Great show. Subscribe and hit the like button. Yes, please do that. For those of you that are not able to listen to us on one of our affiliates, either on 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, Always the Right Call in Evansville, or the Voice of the Region, AM 1230, 104.7 FM WJOB, or over in the northwest or northeast side of the state. 1380 The Fan, Fort Wayne's only sports station. And don't forget Caleb and Kenny in the morning there, and the Sports Rush immediately following us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. But if you're not able to do that, please, for those of you listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, and it greatly beneficial to us. Also, don't forget about the Capital One Bowl Mania, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Password is B-Town. Last day to get your picks in. So I put mine in and just said, I'm not going to worry about it. But we'll see how that comes out. I've got the prizes for the champion and 2 second place tied behind me. I hope to get that sent out before I leave town. If I don't, bear with me. It's been a long week and just working at everything. Man, this has been an absolute fun week and a great way to end it today. Big thanks to Casey Bartley, of course, the Boiler Upload as Purdue takes on number 3 Purdue takes on number 1 Arizona at Gamebridge Fieldhouse tomorrow at 4:30. Thanks to Shay Wildeboor from Jayhawks Slant as the number 3 Kansas Jayhawks come into Bloomington tomorrow. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, of course. Did you notice he took off that Auburn shirt for that press conference?
That's hilarious.
And Pat Graham, the former Floyd Central and Indiana great, and Sherron Wilkerson, the former Jeffersonville great, former Indiana great, and current head coach at Jeffersonville. Pat's the assistant at Evansville Harrison now, as they will take on each other tomorrow. Tonight, Evansville Memorial takes on Trent Sisley's Heritage Hills team. He will be in Bloomington tomorrow for this game. So looking forward to talking to him a little bit tomorrow, if possible as well. But man, I can't thank each and every one of you. Most of all, without you, we have no reason to be here any day. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you. Thanks to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines until tomorrow, which, don't forget, after the game with Todd Leary, as the Indiana basketball postgame show live from Hoosier Hanks comes at you. Don't forget that. That should be hopefully fun. If not, we'll make it fun regardless. And come on out to Hoosier Hanks East. If you're not going to the game, stop by and watch it with Todd, and or come afterwards. It'll be a big crowd. Man, I am looking forward to it. I can't thank you guys enough. Have a great one. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.